This is Tiger Cats Postgame on the Ticats Audio Network.
Tiger Cats Postgame, Bubba O'Neill and Andy Fantuz with you on a Week 1 loss for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. The positive 27-13. The Hamilton Tiger Cats outscored the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the second half, but this is a 60-minute bowl game, and they go on to lose their Week 1 encounter at IG Field in the Manitoba capital, 42-31. Andy, I'm going to say that the second half may band-aid some of the performances and things that happened in the first half. At the end of the day, it's a loss, but there is some positives to go into Week 2 with.
Yeah, not too often you get a score from your defense and a score on your special teams, nearly 2 from your special teams. So that's a big takeaway from this game, no doubt about it. Just a lot of sloppiness, a lot of rust, if you will. The missed connections in the first half in the passing game and the penalties, along with the turnovers. Those are the 3 biggest issues that I see from this game. But you know, the second half was a bit more contained, and they did win that second half. But you know, the Bombers were kind of playing a different style of play and running the ball a lot more. Zach didn't have not nearly as many throws, but they were able to establish some rhythm in the second half. So there is some momentum to move forward with.
On Tiger Cats post game, we will present our performer of the game, presented by Hercules Tire, right on our strength. And of course, courtesy of Access Storage, we will go down to the locker room to talk to Coach O and our performer of the game. And of course, we'll review Andy's Car Star keys to victory. And let's start with that, Andy.
All right. Well, number 1 was start fast. And initially, we both looked at each other like, you can't get a much better start than this. But we talked about no 2-and-outs in the first half. And other than that first drive, they went 2 2-and-outs in a row. And really, the play got taken to them in that first quarter, and they weren't able to recover. It was 21-4 after that first quarter. Zach already had over a couple hundred passing yards and 3 touchdowns. So they definitely did not win that first key to victory, even though they started fast for the first minute of the game. But a turnover, and it all went downhill from there.
Well, your second key also comes into factor in this contest.
Yeah, the second key was QB pressure. And if you look at the sacks, the Ticats had 1 sack, which was actually that Ted Laurent amazing play where he sort of submarined in there to break up the pitch. And Chris Edwards returned it for a touchdown. And the Bombers had three sacks, but even the pressure the whole game, it just seemed like Zach Collaros was very just calm and confident, and it looked easy for him. There were a couple plays throughout the game where he kind of had to scramble and extend the play, but the Ticats weren't able to bring him down in those situations. And most notably, I guess, was that late third and long or second and long where Zach avoided a sack and scrambled for 6 yards.
Massive.
And then Sergio Castillo hit the 51-yarder to put them up by 10. If they would have been able to get a hold of him there, it would have been a 7-point game. They would have had the ball back, a long field to go, but a chance.
Number 3, a massive factor in this game, especially early. 6-2 is the score, and I know that doesn't make you very happy.
Yeah, no. I think it ended up being 6-4 in the turnovers,
6-4, okay.
And that's really the only reason it was close from the Ticat perspective, because those turnovers were essentially all for scores, other than the Fraser Sopik returning it to the 3-yard line and a touchdown on 1 play later. But 6 turnovers is not going to win you a lot of ball games in this league, and you know that Coach O and the coaching staff are going to address this immediately, and this is going to be unacceptable moving forward.
especially early, because it kind of gives the momentum is lost already early, especially in the first quarter there with those turnovers, and all of a sudden they're up on you so quickly, and you're on the road on top of that too.
Yeah, and we talked about wanting to create that identity and be different from the 2022 team. And you could see, I guess, that first turnover by Bo Levi, how maybe he didn't see the player, Houston, right behind, I think it was Felix Grand-Gauthier there on the sideline.
Yeah, it was.
But he probably had a little bit more time just to make sure that that play was there. And then the fumbles are just things that you have to clean up. You know, there were a few times where pressure off the edge was just so immense that there was not much Bo Levi could do in the backfield. But we got to find a way to protect the ball no matter what.
Well, I think the Bombers get 17 points off turnovers, and that's a real tough one. Let's go with the roundtable format of our post-game show here on the Ticats Audio Network. We bring in the boys from the booth, and RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker, and I think you guys, we kind of all are in union and all about this, RJ, is the fact that, you know what, there was those positives in the second half. And like I said, they outscored the Bombers 27-13. That sounds really good. You close well, but you put yourself in a hole that was just far too deep.
Yeah. To be honest, I mean, when it was 32-4, I think we were all thinking this is going to be really, really ugly, and it got exciting. So a lot of credit. There's a lot of new Tiger Cats, a lot of new players. And whether anyone will admit it or not, it takes a little bit of time to come together. And a lot of those guys didn't play in the preseason or played very sporadically. So this is really their first game together. I'm sure they'll be able to clean up a lot of things in their, 9-10 days until their next game. So I'm looking forward to the next game. I thought the Tiger Cats finished much better than they started.
Luke, one of the things O'Shea said during his media availabilities this week is that we're bringing back 24 players that not only have a union together in terms of experience together, we've won and we've lost together. And that emotional aspect of it, I think, is important as well, too.
Yeah, and they played like that. I mean, they were really cohesive. They looked like, RJ, you said it during the broadcast, like they didn't look like it was the first game of the season. The Blue Bombers, that is... you know, they just had an ability to maintain possession of the ball and put drives together, and the Ticats did not. But the score is much more favorable than at times really that the game felt. But you can you zoom into the details offensively, and it was so close here and there. A few of those throws that could have gone different. Specifically, the last one that's fresh on our minds is the near miss, what would have been a touchdown throw to Terry Godwin, that just a couple inches different would have really changed the way that this game was ended in the fourth quarter.
You know, looking at the numbers there for Bo Levi Mitchell, he hits on 18 of 34, and I'll throw this open to both of the former receivers. And Andy, you can start with this is timing, and I don't know. I don't know if that's the 3 weeks of training camp is enough to really establish that. As we've talked about with the Bombers and their experience, they look like it was week 10 already. But it really was a work in progress throughout the game, and it really did show early.
It did. Those first two long balls were underthrown, or one was misthrown and one was underthrown. And then you could tell with the next two long ones, one to Tim White and one to Terry Godwin, that it seemed like Bo really tried to step into it and make sure it wasn't going to be underthrown, and sort of threw it before he was supposed to, and it ended up being 2 or 3 yards overthrown. So I think those are issues that he's going to look at and he's going to be able to clean up in practice coming up with this week. So I'm not as concerned with that. But you could see the difference between the Ticats side and the Bombers side. You could see the anticipation of the throws, just the rhythm of them, and it wasn't trying to force it in late. It seemed like for Bo Levi, it was like a last minute, just trying to gun it in there sometimes, and where Zach was sort of just laying it up and in, and it seemed nice and easy. So that's that's what I noticed with that. There was positives though in some of the passing game. Like I thought it was nice to see Duke Williams with a couple big plays and some movement after the catch. I thought Keandre Smith had a couple really nice catches in traffic. He took a few big hits, and Tim responded after all those missed connections with that big touchdown catch. So there is something to build on there.
And Luke, I mean, I can think of one play, and not so much on those deep throws. There was a seam pattern down to Duke Williams where he kept on running, and Bo looked for the little short 10 yards, and it was almost intercepted.
Yeah, it's hard to. I sort of actually held my tongue on that on that play because we can't overstate what we don't know. Like we can't tell if that's a Bo Levi mistake or if that was Duke making a wide receiver read incorrectly, or maybe a combination of them just being on a different page. But you're right, that play stood out in my mind as just an example of no matter whose fault it really was, two guys obviously thinking two different things on the same play, whether it was communication or a physical error, a live read during the play. And that's the kind of things we were not seeing from Winnipeg. But to stay Ticat focused, it just shows it had every mark and sign of a young group, meaning between the quarterback and the wide receivers.
We have exclusive access to the coaching room. Time to check in with Coach O, presented by Access Storage. First of all, Coach, happy birthday. I got to say that to you first things first. But let's examine what you saw there in the first half. And I think we've talked about fighting spirit, and you certainly saw that in the second half. I'm sure lots to clean up. But in the second half, that was an 8-point football game.
Yeah, we're not good enough right now. We were sloppy in the first half. We didn't capitalize on opportunities, and I like, again, the grit. The grit was great in the second half. We found a way to claw back and make it a football game. We just got to be better.
Coach, what is the message to the team when you have a first half like that at halftime in the locker room?
Yeah, simply it's not good enough. We're playing two teams. We're playing ourselves and we're playing the other team. Like if we don't clean it up, it's going to get even uglier. So, it was just real simple, right? It doesn't change, right? You got to take the ball away. You got to put the ball in the end zone. You keep taking penalties. Like it's when you leave things in the referee's hands, it's always going to be 50-50, and we just weren't good enough in that area. That's not winning football.
Coach, it's RJ here. Just Bo Levi Mitchell, your thoughts on his first game as a Tiger Cat?
Yeah, I think he's had better games for sure. Without looking at the tape and assessing everything, I think he'll be the first to tell you he wished he would have played a little bit better. But, I thought there was times he made some good things happen. I thought we protected him a little bit. We slipped up in protection a few times. They were coming after us pretty good. So, all around it wasn't good enough. This wasn't solely on Bo.
Coach, you've got a longer week as you get ready for Toronto. How much are you going to go back and watch this film, or is this a quick turnaround and on to the next?
No, absolutely. We got to dig into this one here. We got to dig into it as coaches, as players. We got to look at where we're at and see how we can improve. So we're not going to put this one to bed just yet. It should be painful to watch. It should be, and we'll learn from it. We'll move on. It's a long season, and this game won't define us, but as of right now, it does.
Coach O, safe flight back to Hamilton. I'm sure the emotions will be high. Lots of learning this week at Tim Hortons Field for practice. But with the Argonauts coming up next, I'm sure the emotions will be high.
Thanks, guys.
Exclusive access to the coaching room. That was Coach O, presented by Access Storage. And I'm going to ask the players here because I have never been in a film session. And Luke, I'm sure sometimes it can be humbling.
Yeah, it absolutely can. And you know what's going to really be the hardest ones to watch are some of the penalties that were taken tonight. It's so black and white. It's such a blatant look at how this hurts our team moment. it's not just a physical mistake. You can get over the missed block or the missed tackle, and you're going to address that. But some of the penalties tonight were just too obvious. It's just too right there, and that's the kind of thing that, truthfully, it's not even your position group meeting. Like, that's the kind of stuff that can sometimes get called out in a team meeting and is made really, really obvious in an attempt to deter that, to deter more of that type of action. I mean, we saw some really, really kind of silly penalties that have to be avoided moving forward.
Every championship team, doesn't matter the sport, discipline is always talked about. And the difference in the penalties in this game is obscene. Tiger Cats, 13 penalties compared to Winnipeg's 3. 111 yards in penalties for Hamilton, 10 yards in penalties for Winnipeg. You're not going to win that football.
That's crazy to me, RJ. 10.
Yeah.
10. And with all due respect to the Ticats, it is why the Bombers are consistently a championship team. Like, that's insane to me, 10 yards.
We talked about how positive it was in the return game with Lawrence Woods, but when you factor in all the penalties, the Bombers actually had a far better average starting position on their drives.
Good point, yeah.
Which is just bizarre. We had penalties from the kicker, penalties from the kickoff team for unnecessary roughness, penalties from the return team with holding. They came every which way. We had some belly flops out there. We had kicking the ball. We had a penalty that I'm sure, there's some learning lessons too. I don't know if Tunde knew what he did.
Have any of you guys ever heard? I've never heard of that.
I didn't know.
I watched it. I mean, it was a weird. I mean, Prue. Sometimes he can be the more interesting of all the officials in the league. His definition was strange to me, but I didn't think there was anything strange there.
Football's deception. You want to fake out your opponents.
If it's a rule, it's a rule. We should know if it is or not. And I guess, I don't know if that's a new rule or not.
Yeah, it's obviously a rule.
But you've seen in football, you've seen like the fake spike and throw it deep like in the NFL before or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, if it's a rule, it's a rule. So, you know what I thought was kind of interesting, though? We brought it up, how only having 6 offensive linemen coming into the game. Tyrone Riley, I'm not sure what happened, but he came out of the game. He had an injury that we didn't really see on the TV. And then late in the game, Saxelid went out, and we saw Casey Sales throw on a different jersey and come in and play left guard. And that was kind of interesting to know you have that versatility out of someone like that.
Yeah.
Well, he would know the Winnipeg defense.
Yeah, well, he came in and played left guard for Brandon Revenberg, and Rev had to go out to right tackle.
Yeah, I don't think that's a place for Rev out in the tackle position there. I don't know I don't know when the last time he played tackle, but that was a tough situation, though.
It is a risk when you travel with 6 offensive linemen, though. I mean, that is something that can happen, and that added to the chaos and adversity of the game.
Sorry, Bob, I just want your question to Coach Oluke about the tape and the video, and I loved his answer because, it wasn't a great performance on some aspects for the Tiger Cats, but let's do a glass half full here, and there's a lot of things they can fix, and they're going to see it on video, and hopefully not do it again. There's a lot of teaching moments that are going to happen this week, and a lot of fixable things. It's not stuff that is going to take weeks and weeks. They can immediately fix a lot of these issues. So, it's a loss in Game 1 in Winnipeg. It would have been nice to get a victory for the Tiger Cats, but not many teams win in Winnipeg. So now you've got the opportunity to see your mistakes and be better against Toronto, and we'll see if they can make those adjustments.
I thought one of the things that I think you can build on as well, too, is James Butler. 11 carries, 66 yards, and I know he fumbled the ball twice, but considering the fact that they were down by so many points where you're kind of going into the second half and you're kind of thinking it's going to be a pass attack, Andy, they did give him the ball, and I think he showed the fact that he's going to be a valuable part of this offense moving forward.
I think he needs to be. There's a lot of question marks surrounding the receiving core right now, and I think establishing the run is really going to take a lot of pressure off Bo Levi, Mitchell, off those receivers, and off the offensive line. Let them get in a rhythm. Let them move downfield, push some people around, get some confidence about them, and just start controlling the line of scrimmage and controlling the game. So I couldn't agree more with what we were talking about pregame, with Coach Sal was saying, and yeah, that early fumble just, I think, deterred the play calls to go towards him throughout that first half. But when he did show some signs of greatness, and I think they need to build on that.
Certainly catching out of the backfield as well, too. At least that threat's always there. Guys, let's talk about that first half a little bit. I don't want to always stay on the negative, but when it was in that first half and the Cats had a lead, and then the way that Collaros was able to pick apart the defense, and I thought there were some issues on all three levels. Is that, RJ, they didn't get enough pressure up front, even though they were at times sending 6 and 7. And it kind of, we've talked about the secondary. It's going to be they're going to learn. I mean, this isn't the same secondary we had last year. And they got exposed a little bit, I thought, at times.
They did, and there's a lot of new faces there. Kenneth George Jr., first CFL game. He talked about the big field and how he was ISO'd a little bit in the preseason. He got a little bit in this game. He's a smart guy. Hasn't been playing football for a long time, but he's come a long way in a short time. So I think he's the kind of guy who can make adjustments, and I think that secondary will get better. And it was, I mean, this is a great receiving core. They didn't even have Kenny Lawler, but they've all been together for a long time. And that cohesiveness was clear many, many times, especially on the scoring plays.
Let's go right back down to the locker room and connect with Jameer Thurman, who is our performer of the game, presented by Hercules Tire, right on our strength. Jameer, I know you were probably looking more forward to a victory and leaving Winnipeg, but again, that fighting spirit in the second half, some big plays by the defense to make this a very interesting contest, something to hang your hat on.
Yeah, it is at the end of the day, but we dug ourselves into too deep of a hole in the first half, and we weren't able to overcome it. You're never going to win games when you take that many penalties. So all around, we got to be better as a team.
Jameer, what's the chatter on the sideline when things seem to continuously go wrong and little execution details, and after the play, penalties? What do you say to the other players, and what's the chatter like on the sideline?
Well, you know, a lot of some of the things, you know, are self-inflicted wounds. Guys just having bad eyes, knowing the jobs that we're supposed to do. But we just talk to them. We understand. There's no need to irate or berate someone, you know, yell at them. That's not going to solve anything. Understand. Talk to them about the technique, the details. You know, I mean, we practice this stuff every single day. So we just address it and we just move on.
Jameer, it's RJ here. You said you practice every day, but game is always different.
Absolutely.
When you see the video, do you feel like a lot of the mistakes that happened in this game are fixable? And how many are due to so many new players trying to come together?
Well, everything's fixable. You know, I mean, those guys get paid too as well. You know, they made some great plays, made some great throws and everything. But, you know, we have to put ourselves in better position on defense to eliminate those plays. You know, it's just bad technique, bad discipline all around the board, and then we're just gonna fix that. You know, everything's fixable. You know, it's never just like, oh, there's nothing you can do about that. Yeah, you know, some throws are perfect to where just the receiver can catch it. But at the end of the day, you know, we got to make the play on defense to get off the field.
Jameer, you guys fly back to Hamilton and you get ready for a long week of prep for Toronto. What's the best attitude for a leader on this team to have? How do you approach this week coming off that game?
Well, we got to give it to the film, see the mistakes that we made, correct those. You know, we got to harp on it's literally the details. You know, I know we talk about that all the time. You know, but the details go a long way, and when you are missing those details, good teams take advantage of that. So we have to go back to the drawing board, look ourselves in the mirror, and put a better performance out there next Sunday.
Jameer, you're looking good in those colors. I mean, how did it feel like to be a Tiger Cat there? Just putting aside the actual final score, did it feel good to be a Tiger Cat?
I mean, I don't know if I can put aside the final score, but I'm just great to be here with these guys. We put a lot of work in training camp, and I'm just excited. We didn't come out with a win today, but we will be better moving forward.
We certainly look forward to it. Good luck with practice this week. I know you said you got lots of work to do, but it's those Argos coming up next, and I'm sure you guys will be ready to go.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for joining us, Jameer Thurman, our performer of the game, presented by Hercules Tire. Ride on our strength. And let's turn the tables, guys. RJ, I'll start with you. I guess when you have a game like this, that things didn't go your way, especially opening week, nothing like invading the Argos in their house and going to spoil their party. And I'll save this for you guys. You guys can kind of bring this up as well, too. The fact that the Argonauts haven't played a game.
Yeah.
And the Ticats do have at least a game, 60 minutes of experience.
Yeah, well, that probably favors the Argos because they'll be able to see a lot more of the Tiger Cats in game action than the Tiger Cats will of the Argos. And there isn't a ton of Chad Kelly video out there, so that'll be a bit of a challenge. I love what Jameer said, and it made me think. So many of the guys the Tiger Cats brought in have won championships. And you can just hear it in his voice. Like, he wants to get to practice now and start fixing some things and won't forget the score. And it's just that attitude that is, it's not positive losing the game, but there is some optimism for Tiger Cats fans when you know you've got those guys who are going to have a heck of a week of practice, and I expect things to be different against Toronto.
You're right. You have to capture a spirit of optimism wherever you can. The CFL season is long and it's strange. And speaking of the Argonauts, that's a team who are Grey Cup champions right now. But I think our impression of their season last year was not. They weren't playing like champions for starting in June, right? Meaning last year's Argonauts, and they ended up hoisting the cup at the end of the year. They started playing right at the end and had a great game against Winnipeg. This loss in Winnipeg tonight doesn't write in stone the end for the end of this year for the Ticats. It just doesn't. That's just not how the CFL works. So many things can be turned around. Jameer Thurman mentioned the details, which is sort of my point through the game there. I mean, don't just see this glaring loss and the score and the lack of momentum. Boil it down to the details, because there's things that each player can actually fix and can actually decide not to do that they did in this game. And so that's what it takes to be a professional athlete. You have to turn off the negative and turn on the positive voice in your head and go be better. And they've got a great chance to do it.
Andy, some of over the decade, I mean, some of the Tiger Cats' best performances have been in Toronto.
Yeah, they have. And, just kind of piggybacking on Luke there, a positive to take from this game, you saw how many times over the past few seasons have we seen Chris Edwards score a touchdown on defense against the Tiger Cats. And
too many times.
He was one of many of the new players today to make a big impact on the game. Like Jameer Thurman was our player of the game. James Butler had some nice rushes and a touchdown. We saw Fraser Sopik with the near touchdown. Chris Edwards with a touchdown. It was nice to see Carthel Flowers-Lloyd block that punt and Omar Bayless pick it up for the touchdown after they had such a great training camp and preseason. Going back to Chris Edwards, though, he's going to be chomping at the bit to get some to have some success against the Argos. And they just got their new fancy rings, but it is a new season. You don't know what to expect out of them, and it's going to be a dogfight. I think it's going to be one of those seasons where it's going to be a lot of ups and downs throughout the league, and a lot of parity in the league. And getting into Toronto this week and getting a big win is the perfect way to start your East Division matchups.
They actually get their rings on Sunday against the Tiger Cats, and they raise the banner. I think that's the game they do it. So great.
All right.
I thought I saw they already got them, or some of them. got
Well,
them.
it's their first home game, so they're
Oh,
giving
so
out
they'll
rings to the fans, and
present
raising the
them.
banner.
Okay, I
and-
gotcha.
yeah.
Well, I don't know how much cheering there'll be because most of the fans that will be there will be Ticat fans. Like, is that
point.
not fair to say? Like, I mean, no offense. I mean, but I think Ticat fans love making that trip down the road, down the QEW, or just hopping on the GO train and getting down there. So that really should be a fun contest. Thank you so much, guys. Great analysis and great call from you guys as well too during the ball game. And Andy, always great to be with you for the pre, halftime, and post, folks. 42-31, not what the Tiger Cats were looking for in week one, but nonetheless lots of positives to build on, and it is a long season in the Canadian Football League. So again, Winnipeg Blue Bombers 42, Hamilton Tiger Cats 41 at IG Field in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Thank you so much for listening. For Andy and the rest of the boys, we'll be back a week from tonight. Tiger Cats pregame presented by Greenworks gets going. And will be in Toronto. Our broadcast starts at 6 p.m. Be there or be square. And you want to be with us right here on the Ticats Audio Network.